treatment plan now on. A patient may come with myriad dental problems, and such cases will leave us confused as to where to start from and where to finish. Can we alone handle it all? Well, not really. So actually, see, we have so many specialities, and these specialities were segregated not only for academic assessment, for professional designation and evaluation, but they were never meant to isolate us, to confine us within our specialities. So today, it would be best if we merge together and emerge out for the betterment of the patient in large. Together, we will explore the situation better, integrate all our findings, and evolve a treatment plan which will be more streamlined and simplified, safeguarding patient interests. I'm here for the presentation, Interdisciplinary Approach in Oral Rehabilitation. And basically, for the ease of it, I'll divide it into prosthetic and non-prosthetic treatment lines. The most common reason why a patient would come to us is mutilated dentition. And the patient may complain of pain, loss of aesthetics, loss of function, one or more. After a thorough diagnosis and treatment plan, and after relieving pain, that is the first thing that you do. And probably caries is the biggest reason for pain here. And it can hit as early as in children. So after complete restoration here, patient the decade were treated endodontically, and then screw retain post-course were done, and composite buildup was done. Now this patient is fortunate. Why? Because a single doctor, the pedodontist alone, could handle it all. He didn't need so many people intervening. Similarly, this patient also, he had more extensive caries, all restored, crowns placed, extractions, and space maintainers given. Again, this was exclusively done by a pedodontist. But what happens when the same patient grows and comes to us? Can we handle it alone? Can we do the best alone? Definitely no. Here, after we called on endodontist, doing complete restorations, we went on with post and course. I'm in favor of custom post and course. They were placed, metal trying done, and the final restoration. Custom post and course are the favorite for any prosthodontist, I believe, and we think of any kind of preformed post and course. And you can do them even for posterior teeth, where you have multi-rooted teeth, little coronal structure, more radicular structure required. Here, where the canals were parallel, we have a single unit here. The post and core is seated, and the final restoration. But what do we do when we have multi-rooted teeth with divergent roots? Well, we'll go for a split post and core, and this is the pattern, the casting, and then one casting seated and then assembled in the mouth. Whatever be the material that you've chosen for post and core, the most important thing is to get the right form which will receive the crown. Never rely on the cement. Cement is going to only fill that discrepancy between the crown and the tooth. It is not going to retain your crown. And another important thing that you need to get in your crowns, in your tooth, is the ferrule effect. This ferrule, this will brace the tooth against any kind of root fractures in the future. Let me tell you one thing. Coronal fractures can always be managed. Difficult are the root fractures. So avoid any situation that can lead to a root fracture. Another patient here, the similar case, little coronal structure, but little interarch space also. We had no space for two different entities. So we went for a single entity. The post and core was chosen such that it could be layered with the ceramic material. So a single unit, post and core, crown, a single entity served the purpose. And this is the Richmond crown. These Richmond crowns are good for interiors, but you can also give in posteriors with very limited interocclusal space as in such. But whenever you're doing Richmond crown, to avoid future root fractures, be careful with the kind of masticatory load they're subjected to. Another patient here, this patient had mutilated anteriors, but you can see from the picture, very little interarch space. Again, it needed interdisciplinary support. We alone could not put the crowns here. We called on a periodontist, did surgical crown lengthening, got a good crown length, did post and course, and these are the final restoration. And the patient was really happy to receive them. But we can do the surgical crown lengthening only if you have a good biological width available. What happens when you have inadequate biological width? Well, then we have another specialist helping us, the orthodontist. Here, we first manage the root. You see here, there is an abscess here. Endodontist did this after the circumcision was given. And then we have the orthodontist who played the bracket and extruded it slowly so that we could place a post and core and then do a crown. This was good instead of extracting the tooth. Orthodontists can also help us in managing oral habits. Oral habits in toddlers are very common. Thumb sucking, tongue thrusting, they're all common. But what happens if they continue for a longer time? They'll have deleterious effects on the dentition, as you can see in this patient. An 18-year-old girl came with open bite, tongue thrusting severe, and periodontal problem. Just placing crowns would definitely not have helped us. So first of all, after complete analysis, we gave her habit-breaking appliances, which could be cribs or oral screen. I gave them both. After that, we did meticulous periodontal therapy and then went on for tooth preparation for the maxillary and mandibular interiors. And these are the final restoration, a happy patient. But remember one thing, old habits die hard. So even after final restoration, habit-breaking appliances were continued for her. Another reason a patient would come to a prosthodontist is for missing teeth. They can be acquired or congenital. Don't immediately jump into replacing those teeth because only missing tooth is not a problem. To understand this, we need to understand what happens with the loss of teeth. With the loss of teeth, as the patient chews on that side, there is periodontal loss in the missing area. And with this, again, because of this missing space, the adjacent teeth will start migrating, opposing teeth will supra-erupt. And with this, there will be loss of contact between all the teeth. Loss of contact means food traps. Food trap means initiation of caries. And with this, if they're not arrested at this stage, this hygiene problem continues to go bad. And with this, you have periodontal issues. And even if the problem is unarrested here, we'll have severe periodontal problems, deeper caries, and a vicious cycle is set. We have mobile teeth, and now we have a deranged occlusal scheme. If it's still not stopped, we have severe premature contacts, we have interferences, and this is a continuous process. And this depends on how many teeth are missing and how long the patient had been edentulous. So to manage such cases, you need an interdisciplinary approach. You can't just go on placing a tooth. Now, one simple oligodontia case here, missing lateral incisors, very common. And here we had very little space, so not much was required. Simply by closing the space orthodontically and doing a little enameloplasty, we had a satisfactory smile. But not always the patients will come with such easy situations. Another case of missing lateral incisors. The missing lateral incisor, besides that, patient had a gummy smile, had an asymmetric gingival line. And so after gingivectomy was done, the teeth looked better, and then we did laminates for all the interior teeth. This way, without actually replacing a tooth, we got a satisfactory smile. But not always you'll have a space which can be managed this way. Sometimes you'll have more than that sufficient space. So instead of closing space, we start opening space and doing a prosthetic rehabilitation. As in this patient here, we had missing lateral incisors, and we had a very irregular alignment of the arch. After orthodontic correction, we had a good space managed, and we placed 2 implants for the lateral incisors. If you feel the patient is young, not ready for implants, we can go for resin bonded prosthesis here. Now, many a times, you'll have congenitally missing teeth with a huge diastema, and this is a huge problem. So many times you'll find quacks placing a tooth here. This should never be done. We never have a tooth in the midline. So here the best would be first to correct the diastema. This is corrected orthodontically. Now when you're doing this, another thing that you need to take care of is the frenum. Many a times diastema comes with a huge frenum. So it's important that you, before you go for orthodontic correction, you go for a frenectomy or a frenotomy. As in this patient, a frenectomy was done, orthodontic treatment was carried out. We had sufficient space for the missing lateral, and so we gave laminates again for the peg lateralis and an FPD for the missing tooth. If you want an implant, right now you can go for a resin bonded prosthesis to later be substituted by an implant supported prosthesis. This is the smile. Now this is a very symmetric smile as compared to the preoperative. This patient, at the age of 55, she comes to me for replacement. She had congenitally missing teeth, but never got them replaced. She also had some root stump, which was extracted. Now you can see a very uneven plane, a huge diastema in the midline, and she came just before her son's wedding. And of course, orthodontic treatment was never line of treatment of choice for her. So what we did, what we saw, that she had a huge residual ridge defect here because the lateral incisors was never there. We had a defect here. Another thing that we observed, that this central incisor was impeding the prosthesis. So got this tooth extracted, did some tissue grafting here, and then went for a fixed prosthodontic treatment. And this is the result that we had. We had filled the residual ridge area and we got the final prosthesis, and we got a perfect alignment too. This is the patient before and after. This is a wonderful result. She was really happy, smiling for all the photographs in the wedding. But if you want to avoid those residual ridge defects, it's important that while extraction, you preserve the socket. And this preservation of the socket can be done with the help of dried bone, membrane sutured in place, and place an ovate pontic in your temporaries to get the right gingival architecture. Today, many people are advocating the use of partial extraction therapy or the socket shield technique in implants to preserve the sockets. You can do this with a double shield also. So a lot of things are going on just to preserve the bone. So you need to understand the patient right from the time the patient comes from extraction to rehabilitation to you. You need to plan that patient. The patient cannot just get the tooth extracted and come to you at a future time. Now look at this face. Do you think these beautiful faces were born with beautiful smiles? No, definitely not. Most are the handiworks of smart people like us. So what do we do in such patients? Do we just paint the teeth white? No. Then do we jewel them, use good makeup? No. And what do we do? Well, we re-establish the harmony between the pink, the white, the pink, and the face. If you get this harmony, you get the most beautiful smile and the $1 million smile that you are planning to. So first thing that you have for your whites, you have so many grids, golden proportion, that you need to have this kind of size for the tooth, this kind of for the mesodistal width for the interiors. And there's so many grids and softwares today which can be used for this purpose. We have several smile design rules. Horizontal alignment. Your interior should be in alignment with the interpupillary line. The mid-face symmetry should coincide with dental symmetry. The smile line should go along the upper lip. Your gum line should go along the smile. You should have curved tooth edges with sufficient incisal embrasures, crescent or the scallop-shaped gingiva with a sharp line. And you should have the right proportion of adjacent teeth, central to lateral to canine. Then the right tooth proportion, the mesodistal width versus the cervico-incisal width and the smile width. You need to preserve the buccal corridor. You want a $1 million smile, not a million tooth smile. So you need to observe all these smile design rules while you're restoring. Besides that, you need to give that characterization to your tooth. And that will be done by looking at the age, the span of tooth extraction. How does the patient smile and what is his lip position in dynamic position of the mandible? what is the personality, oral condition, and how attractive. So many times you have the most imperfect dentition, yet the most appealing smile, like Maushami Chatterjee of rare ears. So these will impact the alignment of your dentition. Now, many a times you can't achieve them all. Now, students, what do you do when you don't know a question which is asked to you? When you can't convince your exam, what do? You confuse them. And how do we confuse our patients? Well, we'll create illusions. Now, students, these are illusions which are done by a bottle of ceramic, not hallucinations on a bottle of beer. Please understand that. So, illusions is by altering the perception of an individual tooth. You have a space management problem, and there's only one tooth size that can fit, but yet it can appear different. How? This is the normal tooth size. The same size can look narrow by increasing the curvature, look wider by flattening it, look shorter by increasing the bulk, and look longer by flattening it labiolingually. So these are the illusions that you can create in your whites. Colored tooth which can be easily managed, but I believe this is one of the most difficult because you have perfectly virgin teeth adjacent to it. To get a lifelike appearance, you need to have the most natural shade matching with it. For this, we have done laminates here and we got quite close to it thanks to the good lab work that we got. Another patient here, peg lateralis, laminates were done and got the right white. And tetracycline stains, again laminates, and again a perfect smile. Now, this is a case of transposed teeth. We did laminates on all 6 teeth and were able to get the right aesthetics. But so many times you'll have developmental disturbances which cannot be managed with laminates alone by your specialty. These were tetracycline stains, which were very deep. So instead of laminates, because laminates are translucent and may reflect the gray shade, we did zirconia crowns and we did a little gingivectomy. Now, that's one thing that I want to tell you here. Do you see this black triangular space? This patient did not mind it, but so many patients won't like these black triangular spaces. This small wedge of tissue, the interdental papilla, can create a huge mess. So you need a periodontist to do this before you can go with your crowns. This case, now this is a bad case of amelogenesis imperfecta. You can see a cross bite all over. So if you go straight away with your crowns, the occlusion will not be okay. So first we did the orthodontist did an arch expansion, got a better overjet. Overjet is the most important thing that you need for anterior crowns. In absence of overjet, if you have a close overbite, you're definitely going to have a difficult time doing your crowns. These are the final restoration. PFM crowns were used because this patient had a very soft dentition and zirconia are too hard for her. In fact, because of the space constrictions, we used only facings on the maxillary teeth. In fact, as a prosthodontist, we believe in preserving what we have. I always prefer maxillary crowns with only facings instead of going for full ceramics. This is a patient. Another patient. Now, when you get your white right, you've placed very nice laminates crowns. But if your pink is not okay, will the patient be satisfied? The pink may not be okay because of inflammation, because of pigmentation, because of too much exposure of the pink, because of spaces or the black triangular spaces, because of recession, or because of gingival hypertrophy. Whatever be the reason, you'll never deliver a satisfactory smile only managing the teeth. You need to manage the gums, and without periodontist, it'll be difficult. Now, for example, in this patient, we managed the white very well, but patient was not happy with the asymmetric gum line. So he was screaming even after the complete treatment. So you need to do a smile management, keeping in mind the gingiva also. So now to understand, is the gummy smile okay for the patient? How can we manage it? As in this patient here, the gummy smile was managed with a simple surgical crown lengthening by a periodontist, and the patient looked much better in the second slide you see. This is how the periodontist did it. A simple procedure, but it is worth it. Another patient here with asymmetric gum line, and the patient had tissue defects. So we just did not do the crowns. We also did a complete management of the gingiva first with grafting. Definitely in we, I mean the periodontist. So this was the final result. We had symmetric gingiva, proper architecture, and if color is an issue for you, depigmentation can be done with the help of laser or with surgical blade also. Another patient, this patient did not come to us for any kind of treatment except for a missing posterior tooth. But when we saw the arch, we could see the patient had advanced periodontitis, and this was going on to continue because once the periodontitis is set, you have an imbalance between the tongue and the lip pressure, and flaring once it begins, it continues. To arrest that, first an implant was placed. This implant is not very clear in the picture, but if I'm telling you, please believe me, that an implant was first placed, and using this as an orthodontic anchorage, the whole arch was stabilized. The arch before and after looked much better and it was more aligned. And after that, the same implant received a crown. This way, we not only improved the aesthetics, we improved the longevity of the arch also. Another patient here, the patient came after trauma. The span available was not sufficient for the processes. So first orthodontic correction was done to get a better space for the missing teeth. After orthodontic correction, implants were placed, and then a full mouth rehab was done. So this is an interdisciplinary support that we have from all specialties to improve what we can deliver to the patient. Another reason for the patient to come to us is wear and tear of the teeth. Now, one leading cause for wear and tear is damaging habits like bruxism, parafunctional habits, clenching, and stress is one huge reason for it. And this bruxism will have effractions, recession, attrition. We could all see it all in this patient. Now, bruxism is a very slow procedure. And with bruxism, we had passive eruption of the alveolus also. So we had reduced height of the teeth, but increased height of the alveolus. That means immediately you can't just go on with the crowns and restore the lost dimension of the teeth, because the lost dimension is already compensated by the growth of the alveolus. We had to go for a crown lengthening first, so that we could get a reasonably good length for our crowns. Then we secured bite. Now remember, whenever you're doing a change in vertical, check, 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 that is it. Any disturbance, any increase in vertical left in the patient is a huge complication. So you cannot err on it. Whenever you go for a change in vertical, go for multiple checks. Do your preparation, go for a check. So to not disturb the vertical much, I did the preparation arch by arch. First the maxillary arch, took the vertical. It's very important that you use proper articulators, face pose to record your jaw relations so that you have minimum errors in your restoration in future. Did the provisional, checked, left it in the patient for a week, checked how the patient accommodated to the new vertical, then went on with the lower arch, retook the vertical and the centric, did a mock arrangement with the help of good articulators, gave the provisional, checked the provisional for 15 days, and then went on with the finals. These are the final zirconia crowns. Today, more and more people are switching to zirconia crowns. Even I recommend zirconia crowns. But remember, zirconia is an extra hard material. It is the most unforgiving material if you leave any error in occlusion. So do your occlusion checks very well. See, I have done this, and we done in coping trial, before glazing, after glazing, and post-operative also, because any premature contact is going to lead to trauma from occlusion and future complications in the patient. And whenever you're restoring a patient with bruxism or any parafunctional habits, always remember to give this, a night guard. And in fact, you can tell the patient to use it in the daytime also. And if there's any perforation, immediately come back for a replacement. This is the patient after restoration. And you can see the dazzle, a very happy patient. So these were the managing the white and the pink, but that may not always be sufficient. Now, as prosthodontist, as a dentist, can we manage the face? Look at this patient, a smile before and after. We did no change in whites and pink. Another patient here, again a change, but without actually doing any change in the pinks and whites. Another patient here. So what did we actually do to make the patient look better? Well, we have a magic. The magic is in Botox and fillers. If you do this magic, then it can reverse so many things. The word that actually hurts our ears, aging. Who likes to age? Well, when it comes to saying, I'll also say it's nothing bad to age in a dignified way, but definitely I don't like the word auntie. So nobody likes aging. Who likes these? Nasolabial grooves, widening, deepening. Well, if you can, and you actually can reverse these aging signs with the right use of Botox, fillers, and the right dentition, you can take a decade away from the patient. And what a happy patient you leave behind. You can, with the right dentition, you can remove these perioral wrinkles to somewhat, but with the help of Botox, you can completely eliminate them. Who will be the happiest among these four? Isn't it the last one? Look at these faces, very happy faces, very content, they must have lived a very fulfilling life. But then, ye dil mange more. Well, earlier we would often say that this is an old patient. All the patient needs is function and comfort. But is it true? Have you not delivered a patient a denture? What did the patient first of all do? He picked up the mirror and then he saw, how did he look? Everybody wants to look presentable. Why take away the right from the geriatric patient? This patient reported with these kind of teeth. Only thing that you need to understand in geriatric patient is how much the patient will accommodate to new things, how extensive you can go in your interdisciplinary approach, what systemic problems the patient is going through, what medication he is taking, so what all can be done, and keep consulting the patient physician if required. Even for a simple extraction, many at times you need a proper consultation. So in this patient, we did a single arch rehabilitation. Patients don't accommodate to many changes. Keeping that in mind, we did not change the vertical dimension in the patient. We did segmental preparation one by one so that no alteration in vertical happened. And this is what we did, arch by arch, checking occlusion again and again, completed restoration, a happy functional patient. Another patient here. Now, when you look at the missing teeth, any prosthodontist will say no FPDs because it is defying Anti's law. We still did it because it was opposing both dentition were artificial and the patient didn't have a very long span to think. So FPDs were given with proper lingualized occlusion and the patient is doing satisfactory. In fact, the patient did have RPDs, which she never wore. So now, do you think we need an interdisciplinary approach in dentures also? Dentures is probably a complete monopoly of the prosthodontist, isn't it? Well, you can use forensic dentistry. And more often, we'll have tissue contours which are affecting the foundation. Pre-prosthetic surgery is often required to improve the denture foundation, hypertrophy tuberosities. You can have enlarged bones. You have hypoplastic tissues. And then with combination syndromes and epilepsy fissuratum, which will often require removal. Now, whenever a patient comes to you with mobile teeth, don't go for complete denture immediately. Think if you can save any with the help of an endodontist and a periodontist. You can save some and do an overdenture. This is a frame of an overdenture patient. Only 3 teeth were saved, but they were saved in the mandibular arch, and that's a huge difference between a mandibular overdenture and a mandibular denture. Now, who wants to see this? And the nightmare of any dentist is what? The patient coming to him with dentures in his hand and not in his mouth. That is the worst a dentist can face. Like Dr. Branemark said, why die leaving dentures in a glass of water? Well, today, of course, why should we leave dentures in a glass of water? Let them be in the mouth when you're leaving the world. And for this, implants are there. Implants came as a miracle for any and every situation. And hence, enter implants, exit dentures. Now, almost every patient who was edentulous can have a fixed restoration. Even patient who are severely resorbridge, we can go for short implants, tilted implants, and now with the innovation of novel hybrid prosthesis, we can restore just about any patient with a fixed. And imagine these patients can get them only in 72 hours thanks to the implantologists that we have today with us. So enter implants, exit FPDs. Why sacrifice virgin enamel to replace a tooth? Enter implants, exit RPDs. Now, RPDs are the worst, I think, in prosthetics because giving an RPD, especially when you have malaligned adjacent teeth, it's a huge task. Now, here we come to a paradigm shift because now people who believe in implants are stopping treatments in such patients. Now, as prosthodontist, I'm still an ardent believer in restorative dentistry. I feel we can save them all. But what the implantologist says to us, that restorative failures are very common. Endodontically, they're bound to fail. You'll have missed canals, perforations, and however, the longevity of endodontics is always a question. So instead, go for implants. So does it mean enter implants, exit teeth, as in this patient? Somehow I feel in this patient, we could have saved the teeth. So as a prosthodontist, I am not so overzealous with implants because implants are not without their complications, which can be biological failures, aesthetic failures, or mechanical failures. And imagine, because implants you're placing with a lot of money, more money means more accountability. Once you do an implant, you think you're married to the patient. So if you don't want the patient to come with future complications, you better stick to restorative dentistry along with implants. So instead of putting restorative dentistry against implants, let's integrate restorative dentistry and implant dentistry for the better treatment of the patients. As in this patient here, the patient came with a mutilated dentition. In this patient, we could restore the mandibular arch, but we can see there were only root stumps in the maxillary arch as shown by the OPG here. So we did a complete implant prosthesis for the maxillary arch, restored the mandibular anteriors and went for only posterior. It is a Kennedy class 1 situation here. These are the implants and the crowns for the final completed prosthesis. Another patient, now probably these are the patients who are benefited the most with implants. A patient with ectodermal hypoplasia. He had multiple missing teeth. In this patient here, we did an orthodontic treatment first, closing up the spaces and gave a maxillary overdenture. In the mandibular arch, we placed 4 implants and gave an implant-supported prosthesis. And definitely the patient felt aesthetically and functionally much better. Another patient here, the first zygomatic case that we did here. In this patient also, first the teeth were orthodontically managed. Then 4 implants, 2 endosteal and 2 zygomatic implants were placed in the maxillary arch. A partial hybrid prosthesis was fabricated. The patient was not economically sound, so he was yet planning for the mandibular fixed prosthesis. We had only given him a mandibular overdenture for time being. Another patient here. Now, anybody who sees this will advise complete extraction in this patient. This patient was a 78-year-old gentleman here. But we thought just the otherwise. We did a complete, the endodontist helped us with a complete endodontic treatment, restorative treatment. Then the teeth were prepared and implants were given in areas which could not receive a tooth otherwise. In this area here, maxillary 2.5 and 2.7, we had 2 implants, and in the mandibular arch in the distal extension areas. This was the patient. Here also in the 4, 6, and 4, 7 also, we had placed implants later. I don't have a picture right now. So this is the patient here. So restorative dentistry is yet to go a long way. Another patient with faulty restoration here and a class 2 distal extension. He also received complete restoration for the teeth which are present, and we did implants for the missing teeth. This patient also was very happy after receiving the patient. So the mantra today is, whatever you do, do no harm. And as Divan said, preserve what remains and then replace what is missing. And yes, we all are proud to be a prosthodontist. What God creates, we can recreate. But in that euphoria, don't think that you are that superhero who can deal with all patient expectations. You need to differentiate the reality from what is dreamt.